Hi, I'm Betsy Starbuck, co-president of the San Bernardino Area League of Women Voters. I will be presenting the pros and cons of Proposition 15, an initiative constitutional amendment that will increase funding for public schools, community colleges, and local government services by changing how we tax commercial and industrial property. Here's the situation. Taxes based on the value of commercial and industrial property are a major source of funding for counties, cities, schools, and special districts. Each year, a property owner pays a tax equal to the property's assessed value times the applicable tax rate. When Prop 13 was adopted 42 years ago, it capped the tax rate at 1% of the assessed value plus smaller voter-approved rates to finance local infrastructure. A property's market value is the value at which it could be sold today. A property is reassessed to market value when it is purchased or when ownership changes hands. After that, the assessed value can be increased by no more than 2% per year. Because the value of property typically increases much faster than 2% per year, the assessed value of most property in the state is less than its market value. This is particularly true for commercial and industrial property, which changes ownership less often than residential property. Each county's property tax receipts from the 1% tax are distributed to local governments and schools using a formula that has been in place for many, many years. Here's the proposal. If passed, Proposition 15 would generally require that commercial property be reassessed to market value on a periodic basis. There would be no changes in the rules for reassessment of residential, both owner-occupied and rental, and farm property. If all of the property owned by a business has a fair market value of $3 million or less, that property would continue to be assessed based on purchase price as adjusted. Reassessment of commercial property would be phased in starting with the tax year 2022 to 2023. Under Prop 15, a small business would not pay any tax on personal property. A small business is defined as one having fewer than 50 employees. Other businesses would not pay taxes on the first $500,000 of their personal property. Reassessment of commercial and industrial property to market value would increase the property taxes collected in each county. After paying for the cost of administering this measure and reimbursing the state for any loss of income tax receipts, the balance of the additional revenue would be used to fund local governments and schools. The money for local governments, about 60% of the total, would be distributed according to the existing formula. The money for schools, about 40% of the total, would be deposited into a state fund and allocated among school districts, generally using the same per pupil funding formula that the state currently uses. This allocation would provide money over and above the current constitutional minimum funding requirement. The fiscal effects. The Office of the Legislative Analyst of California estimates that Proposition 15 would produce about $6.5 billion to $11.5 billion per year in additional property tax revenue for local services. Of this amount, approximately 60% would be distributed to local governments, $3.9 billion to $6.9 billion per year. The remainder, $2.6 billion to $4.6 billion, would go to schools and community colleges. Supporters say Prop 15 provides billions of dollars in new revenue for our communities and schools. 10% of the wealthiest businesses will provide more than 90% of the revenue. It gives tax breaks to small businesses to help our economy grow. And finally, it keeps Prop 13's protection for homeowners, renters, and farms. Opponents say Prop 15 would trigger the largest property tax increase in California's history. Additional costs will ultimately raise prices for consumers. It will make it harder for people to start small businesses, and it will require huge costs to administer. For more information, supporters can look to Schools and Community First Yes15.org, and opponents Stop Higher Property Taxes and Save Prop 13 No on Prop 15.org. Thank you for your time.